There's a tool that a huge number of professional developers now say they use more than their code editor, more than their browser. The thing they reach for first, every single day. It doesn't live in a fancy app. It lives in your terminal, that plain text window most people are a little afraid of. And it can read your entire code base, plan a change, write it across a dozen files, run your tests, fix its own mistakes, and hand you finished work, all from plain English. It's called Claude Code, and in the next 18 minutes, I'm going to take you from never touched it to genuinely productive. This is the complete beginner's guide, what it actually is and how it's different from the AI tools you've tried, how to install it on any system, the exact first commands to run, the one file that transforms how well it works, the handful of features that separate people who love it from people who get frustrated, how to control the cost, and the honest limits so you know what you're signing up for. No prior experience assumed. By the end, you'll have it running and you'll know how to drive it. Let's begin. First, what is Claude Code, really? Because this is where most people's confusion starts, and clearing it up changes everything about how you use it. You've probably used AI to code before. Maybe ChatGPT, where you paste a question and copy an answer back. Maybe an autocomplete tool in your editor that finishes your lines. Claude Code is a different category of thing entirely. It is not a chatbot that generates snippets. It is an agent, an autonomous assistant that operates directly inside your project on your computer. You describe a goal in plain English, add a dark mode toggle, find why the dashboard loads slowly, add tests for the payment module, and it does the whole loop itself. It reads the relevant files to understand your code. It makes a plan. It edits multiple files. It runs commands and tests in your terminal. It reads the errors. It fixes them. And it keeps going until the task is actually done, then shows you the result for approval. The mental model that makes it click. Claude Code is less like a tool and more like a junior engineer who sits down at your project, works autonomously, and checks in with you. It launched publicly in 2025, and by early 2026, it had crossed billions in annual revenue and over 130,000 stars on GitHub. It is, by a wide margin, the most serious tool in this category. Under the hood, it runs Anthropic's Claude models, the fast, economical Sonnet for everyday work, and the more powerful Opus for the hardest problems, with up to 1 million tokens of context, which is what lets it hold your whole code base in its head at once. Quick honest note before we install, because I want you to have the real picture. Claude Code is a paid commercial tool from Anthropic. There are free and open source coding agents. We cover them constantly on this channel, and they're genuinely good. But if you want to understand the tool that currently sets the bar, the one whose workflow everyone else is chasing, this is it. And the skills you learn here: how to direct an agent, how to write a spec, how to structure a project's context, transfer directly to every other agent you'll ever use. Learn the best one, apply it anywhere. All right, installation, and it's genuinely quick, under a couple of minutes on any platform. The one prerequisite is Node.js, Node-J-S. That's the runtime Claude Code is built on. If you don't have it, go to nodejs.org and install the version marked LTS. It's a normal installer. Click through it. Once that's done, the install itself is a single command you type into your terminal. On Mac or Linux, open the terminal app. On Windows, open PowerShell. Then type npm install -g at Anthropic/Claude Code. The -g means install globally, so you can run it from anywhere. Press enter, give it a moment, and it's on your machine. There are other install routes: Homebrew on Mac, a native installer, package managers on Linux, but that one npm command is the universal one that works everywhere, so start there. Now, navigate to a project. This matters. Claude Code works inside a folder, so you point your terminal at the project you want to work on. If you're brand new and don't have one, just make an empty folder and go into it. Claude Code can build a project from scratch too. Once you're in the folder, you start it with one word: Claude. Type CLAUDE, press enter. The very first time, it walks you through a quick login. It opens your browser, you sign into your Anthropic account, approve it, and you're back in the terminal, ready. That login connects it to your plan, which we'll talk about in a minute. And now you're looking at the Claude Code prompt, a simple, friendly text box waiting for you to describe what you want. That's the whole setup, from nothing to a running AI agent in about 2 minutes. So let's actually use it, and let's start the way you should always start, which is not by asking it to change things. Start by asking it to understand. Type something like, explain what this project does and how it's structured. Claude Code will read through your files and give you a clear summary. Why start here? 2 reasons. 1, it's completely safe. Reading changes nothing. 2. It warms up its understanding of your code, so its next actions are better informed. This is the single best first move in any codebase, including one you already know. It confirms the agent sees what you see. Now let's make it do real work, and let's do it the safe, smart way, using the feature that separates confident users from nervous ones, plan mode. Here's the problem. Plan mode solves. By default, if you say add a login page, Claude Code will just start doing it, editing files, running commands, charging ahead. For a small task, that's fine. For anything real, you want to see its plan before it touches your code. So instead, you tell it to plan first. You say, plan how you would add a dark mode toggle. Don't write any code yet, just show me your approach. Claude Code analyzes the problem, outlines the exact steps, tells you which files it'll touch and why, and then waits. You read the plan. If it's good, you say, go ahead. If it misunderstood, you correct it right there. Cheaply, in words, before a single wrong line was written. That 5-second review saves you the 5-minute cleanup when an agent confidently does the wrong thing. Plan mode is the difference between an agent that feels reckless and one that feels like a professional. Use it for anything non-trivial. And once you approve, watch what happens, because this is the moment people fall in love with the tool. It edits the files, it runs the commands. If a test fails, it reads the failure and fixes it on its own. It works through the whole task and comes back with, here's what I did. You review the changes. Claude Code shows you clear before and after diffs of everything it touched, and you accept or adjust. You went from a sentence of English to working, tested code, and you supervised rather than typed. Let me make that concrete with a real beginner example, because it just does it sounds like magic until you see the shape of it. Say you tell it, users report the dashboard takes 15 seconds to load. Find the bottleneck and fix it. Here's the loop it runs. It opens the dashboard code and reads it. It traces the data flow and notices the page makes the same database call in a loop, the classic slow pattern. In plan mode, it reports back, the dashboard runs one query per row instead of one query total. I'll rewrite it to fetch everything in a single call. Shall I proceed? You say yes. It makes the edit, runs the page, confirms it now loads fast, and shows you the diff. What would have been an afternoon of you adding print statements and squinting at logs became a 5-minute supervised conversation. That's not autocomplete, that's delegation. And notice you stayed in control at every step. It proposed, you approved, it verified. Now, the single most important thing in this entire video, the one file that separates a frustrating experience from a magical one. It's called Claude.md, Claude.md. Here's the problem it solves. Out of the box, Claude Code is smart but knows nothing about your preferences. It doesn't know you use a particular framework, that your team indents a certain way, that you always write tests in a specific style, that there's a folder it should never touch. So it guesses. Reasonable guesses, but guesses, and it makes them fresh every session. Claude.md fixes that permanently. It's just a plain text file, named exactly Claude.md that you put in your project's main folder. Inside, in plain English, you write down the things you'd otherwise have to repeat every time. Your tech stack, your conventions, your rules, your always do this, never do that. And Claude Code reads it automatically at the start of every single session before you type anything. The effect is dramatic. Without it, you're re-explaining yourself constantly and correcting the same wrong assumptions over and over. With it, Claude follows your standards from the very first prompt, like an engineer who's already been onboarded to your team. There's a wonderful line from a developer who uses it daily. The agent isn't psychic, it's literate. So write things down. And the best part for beginners, you don't have to write it by hand. You can literally ask Claude Code to create it for you. Type, look at my project and generate a Claude.md documenting the stack, conventions, and structure. It'll draft one, and you just edit. If you do one thing after this video, do this. It is the highest leverage 5 minutes in the whole tool. Now let's cover the features that take you from using it to fluent, and I'll keep each one plain. First, /commands. Inside Claude Code, you type a / to get a menu of built-in commands. A few you'll actually use. /clear wipes the conversation history to start fresh. Important because a long, cluttered context makes the agent slower and dumber, so clearing between unrelated tasks genuinely helps. /help shows you what's available, and /permissions lets you control what Claude is allowed to do without asking. More on that in a second. You don't need to memorize them, just type / and browse. Second, and this is a real power feature, subagents. For a big task, Claude Code can spin up focused helper agents that each work in their own separate context. Say you need to understand a large code base before changing it. You can have it spawn an explore subagent that goes and reads everything and reports back a summary, without cluttering your main conversation with all that raw searching. The lead agent stays clean and focused. The subagent does the messy legwork. For large jobs, it can even coordinate several subagents working in parallel. You don't have to set this up manually. You just ask for big things and it uses the pattern. But knowing it exists helps you trust it with larger tasks. Third, skills. This is how you teach Claude Code a repeatable procedure once and reuse it forever. A skill is a little folder with a file called skill.md inside, containing instructions for a specific task. Say, how we write a new API endpoint in this project, step by step. Once it exists, that procedure is available as a reusable command anytime. Teams use skills, so every developer's agent does things the same, correct way. It's an advanced feature, so file it away for later. But it's the thing that turns Claude Code from a personal tool into a team system. Fourth, MCP, the Model Context Protocol. In plain English, MCP is how Claude Code connects to the outside world, your database, your issue tracker, your documentation, external tools. We have a whole breakdown of MCP on this channel, so I won't go deep, but know that this is the door that lets your agent do things beyond just your files. It's why Claude Code can become the center of a real workflow rather than just a code editor. Now, the part responsible adults need to hear, because an autonomous agent running commands on your computer deserves respect, safety, and permissions. Claude Code has a permission system, and you should use it. By default, it asks before doing anything consequential, running a command, editing outside the project, which is good. 3 rules from people who use it heavily. 1. Do not let it auto-commit or auto-push to your repository. Always review changes before they leave your machine. The diffs are right there, read them. 2. Use /permissions to pre-approve the safe, boring commands you trust, like running your linter or your tests, so it stops asking every time, while keeping the dangerous stuff gated. 3. For anything that deploys or deletes, keep a human in the loop, always. Treat Claude Code like a talented junior engineer. Give it autonomy on the safe things, supervision on the irreversible ones. Use this way, it's both fast and safe. Let's talk money, clearly, because the pricing genuinely matters and the right choice depends on how you'll use it. Claude Code runs on Anthropic's subscription plans. The $20 a month Pro plan is the entry point. Great for learning, light use, and small projects. But heads up, it caps fairly quickly during intensive sessions because this agent uses a lot of tokens when it's working hard. If you're going to use it seriously, day in and day out, the $100 a month max plan is what most heavy users land on. It's the practical choice for sustained agentic work, and people who rely on it consider it easily worth it for the time saved. For teams, there's a per-seat team plan, and here's the honest money-saving move that also happens to be good practice. Use the fast, cheap Sonnet model for the 80% of work that's routine, and only reach for the powerful, pricier opus on the hard 20%. The gnarly refactors, the architectural decisions. That single habit controls your cost more than anything else, and it's the same 80-20 split we come back to on this channel for everything. Now the honest limits, because this channel does not sell fantasies, and knowing the edges is how you avoid frustration. Limit 1. It is not psychic, and it can be lazy in exactly the way a human engineer is lazy. If you give it a vague wish, make this better, you'll get a change you didn't want. If you give it a clear spec, extract the payment logic into its own service and keep the controller under 20 lines, you get exactly that. The quality of what you get is directly downstream of the clarity of what you ask. Prompt like a specification, not a wish. This is the #1 thing that separates people who love the tool from people who fight it. And a concrete tip for beginners: include 3 things in a real request: what you want, where it lives, and how you'll know it worked. Add input validation is a wish. Add email format validation to the sign-up form in the auth folder, and make sure the existing tests still pass is a spec. Same idea, wildly different result. You'll get better at this in a day, and plan mode is your training wheels. If the plan comes back wrong, your prompt was the problem, and you learn instantly. Limit 2. It will confidently make mistakes. It's an AI. It can misread your intent, pick the wrong file, or half-finish something if you let it. This is exactly why plan mode, the diffs, and the review step exist. Never blindly accept large changes to important code. You are the senior engineer, it is the fast junior. Read its work. Limit 3. There's a learning curve. This is a power tool, not a toy. The first hour has more friction than a simple chatbot, precisely because it's doing so much more. The payoff is enormous, but budget a little patience for day 1. Write your Claude.md. Start with small tasks, use plan mode, and the curve flattens fast. And limit 4, the honest positioning against the alternatives, because you'll ask, how does it compare to Cursor or Copilot? Short version, they're different shapes. Copilot is an assistant that suggests completions inside your editor. Cursor is a visual code editor with AI built in, and many people find its first hour easier. Claude Code's edge is depth, deep codebase understanding, long autonomous multi-step runs, real back-end work, because it operates as an agent in your file system rather than as a helper in an editor. In fact, the 2026 consensus among a lot of professional developers is to use 2 tools: A visual editor like Cursor for moment-to-moment editing, and Claude Code for the big complex autonomous tasks. It's not always either or. Okay, let's put it all together into the workflow you'll actually use. So it's concrete. You open your terminal, go into your project, and type Claude. First session in a project, you ask it to explain the codebase, then have it generate a CLAUDE.md, and you tidy that up. From then on, every real task follows the same rhythm. Describe the goal, ask it to plan first, review the plan, approve, let it work, review the diffs, accept. Clear the context between unrelated tasks. Keep the cheap model for routine work and the powerful one for hard problems. Review anything before it leaves your machine. That loop, describe, plan, review, approve, is the entire game, and it becomes second nature within a day. So let's recap what you can now do, because it's a real skill you just picked up. You understand what Claude Code actually is: an autonomous agent, not a chatbot. You can install it and start it on any system. You know to begin by understanding, not changing. You know plan mode is your safety and your steering wheel. You know Claude.md is the single highest leverage thing you can set up. You know the power features, subagents, skills, MCP exist and what they're for. You know how to keep it safe with permissions, how to control the cost with the model split, and exactly where its limits are. That is genuinely everything a beginner needs to be productive today. Here's your homework, and it's the good kind. Install Claude Code, open a real project, and give it one small, real task. Fix a bug, add a tiny feature, write a test. Use plan mode. Watch it work. The moment it plans a change, executes it, hits an error, and fixes itself while you just watch. That's the moment this stops being abstract and becomes the tool you reach for first. So here's my question, and I'll pin it below. What did you build or try to build with your first Claude Code session? And what tripped you up? I answer beginner questions down there, and the most common ones become the next tutorial. And tell me where to take this series next. Writing the perfect Claude.md, building your own skills, connecting MCP servers, or the full agent workflow that senior developers actually use. Your vote picks the next one.